Scrappers, Tom from the iScrap app, and today in this episode we are going to be talking about the new 2.25 trillion with a T infrastructure package. Now this crazy package that's being introduced by the Biden administration is geared at a couple of different things, and what we want to look at is how it's going to affect a lot of the scrap, potential scrap, metal usage, and things like that. So we're recording this in April 2021, in the beginning of April, so this is going to be changing most likely as the plan gets developed, as different congressmen and senators and lawmakers come into talking about this. It could be more money, it could be less money. There's a lot of moving pieces to this, but let's talk about a couple of different things. One thing we're going to talk about, which is something that you probably wouldn't think about, is the corporate tax rate, which is such a heavily debated topic. Now, currently the tax rate is at 21%, and they're proposing to bring it up to 28%. Now, Tom, why are you talking about a tax rate when we're talking about scrap? Awesome question. One of the big things that the Trump administration pushed was lowering the corporate tax rate. By lowering it down to 21%, repatriating money from overseas, producing more manufacturing jobs here in the country, in the United States, making more manufacturing jobs, which means more metal being used inside of the country. That was one of the big things that they pushed by hiring more people because the corporate rate was lower, which is exactly what we saw through the Trump administration. Now, in the Biden administration, they're talking about raising the corporate tax rate, and one of the big things that they're already talking about is how many jobs are going to get exported overseas, and that's going to be a big problem because you don't want to lose U.S. jobs. We want to gain U.S. jobs, especially coming out of this, what seems like forever long pandemic. The metal that we want to keep in the country, we don't want to ship it overseas. Now, to shift more to the bridges, the roadways, that type of thing, we talked about manufacturing jobs, right? I'm going to tie it together, I promise. But when we look at it, we want to be able to say, okay, where's the metal going to come from? Now, I recently visited a customer of ours at Rockley Recycling who manufactures the ties on the bridges that the bolts go into. So imagine you're driving down the road and you see the bridges there and you see all those big bolts. They're actually like 4 or 5 inches wide. He manufactures the plates that the bolts go to. When they go through the plates, through the bridge, nuts and bolts on either side, very, very large impact gun tightens them, and then you have your roads put together. He was telling me that the metal that he uses can only be made here in the country, it has to have specs, and it has to have certifications. Now, one of the things that this new infrastructure plan is talking about is opening up bidding, believe it or not, to companies outside of the United States, which to me is about as stupid could get. Because why are we going to give other countries and other companies the ability and the opportunity to make money when we're struggling to produce more manufacturing, more metal consuming jobs here in the country? Now, hopefully this will get solved and it'll say only United States-based companies headquartered in the country can bid on these projects. And if that happens, we're going to need more steel. We're going to keep it repatriated here in the country. It's not going to get exported overseas. And while that could affect some of the metal prices, what we're going to be looking for in the coming weeks and months is how this bill starts to get put together. Anytime you spend $6 trillion over a 14-month period of time between pandemic-related and infrastructure things, a lot of these things really need to be sorted out, and the scrap prices will be affected by this, but not as heavy as you think. The manufacturing job side of things is much more important to the metal prices than the actual bridges and roadways are. Those are going to be more important to the labor side of things. So this is just a perspective from a scrap point of view for the infrastructure package. As things develop, as they unfold, we'll make sure to update you. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know what you think about the infrastructure package. But until next time, I'll scrap you later.